Your own father is a police officer,
He
right?
was, and I have two cousins that are currently police officers, and I have many friends and comrades that are police officers.
Okay, so how is it when you have these conversations with your father, being that he was a police officer?
Um, some are easy, some are hard. We disagree on some stuff, we agree on other stuff. What we do agree on is that it's difficult for black men, very difficult for black men. What we disagree sometimes is on the way to push back. You know, my father's taught me from a very early age. You say yes, sir, you say no, sir, you survive the encounter, and you worry about the other stuff on the other side. You know what I'm saying? But with that said, you know, sometimes I'm about the pushback. I'm about the activists. And, you know, I'm someone's child. You know, my father doesn't want to see anything happen to me, you know, so he's very cautious in that. But my father's brave. He's a warrior for what's right. He isn't, you know, he isn't going to advocate against what's right. You know, he never has. And I encourage all police officers, man, there are a lot of good cops out here, you know, and what I mean is there was just a police officer who was killed, man. His brother's one of the more famous club owners in the city. He was killed on the south side in Clayton, and you should have seen the outpouring of dudes from the streets that knew him. Dudes were just like, I went to high school, he caught me cutting, he didn't bust me, he took me back to school, he covered for me. That's a police officer. That's not a paramilitary agent occupying a neighborhood. And you know, the difference is a police officer would have engaged Eric Garner in a much different way than a terrorist force that's occupying a neighborhood. A police officer engages a community that he knows because a police officer is supported by policy, by politicians that put two cops in a car so that cops can actually get out. If you want to see a police officer, Google Tommy Norman in North Little Rock. That's a police officer. That's not a paramilitary agent set to occupy a people to protect business from that people, you know? So my dad was a police officer. My cousins are police officers. I am in strong support of police officers. I am in strong disagreement with arming and making police precincts paramilitary organizations that simply occupy whatever place they occupy for 8 hours and then they pack up and they go home.
Did you know Bankroll Fresh?
I did not know him. I know of him. I was extremely impressed by him. I had just bought a brand new Vert. I picked up my son and my little boy from school, and we rode around listening to Bankroll not even 2-3 weeks ago, and I was just damn proud. So I'm very sad to hear about what happened the other night, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was killed, I guess, in front of a studio.
Yeah, from what I hear, all I know is what I've seen on the news. I just got home.
Right.
I've been on the road, so.
Well, there were like 50 plus shell casings found at the scene of the crime. I mean, what do you think, and you live in Atlanta yourself, right?
Yeah, I do.
How do you feel when something like this happens in Atlanta? I mean, you're not talking about a stray shot. You're talking about someone unloaded probably automatic weapons or loaded and reloaded to have this level of violence.
Well, we don't know that.
City.
You know, we don't know that. When you hear 50 shell casings, your mind automatically goes to a movie, and you're like, oh man, it's like the Terminator. When I hear 50 shell cases, I say, how many people were shooting? You know, when I think 50 shell cases, I'm gonna think, oh man, well, it must have been like 4 people shooting and everybody just dumped and didn't know what they was doing. Like, you know, so I shoot. So I'm not saying that couldn't have happened like that. What I'm saying is when I hear 50, I think multiple guns. Now, I don't know what happened, but I don't envision it like a movie.
Okay, well, we're talking about multiple clips getting unloaded by at least one plus person.
Yeah, it could have happened.
If not more. But so you're talking about a very violent situation, and in hip hop on top of that. I mean, how do you feel about that?
It hurts me. It hurts me. You know, I hate to hear it. I wish that these young men who get this opportunity could understand that the opportunity that they have is bigger than petty arguments and beef and anger. But, you know, with that said, man, the human ego and the human emotion has done far worse. You know what I'm saying? I feel bad, man. It's no explaining it. I just wish I could sit young homies down and just say, trust me, man, in a year, this shit won't even matter. Like, what you're angry about right now, I promise you, in a year, it won't even matter. In a year, man, you'll be done went through so much money. You'll be able to made love with so many women. You'll be able to buy your mama so many cars. It's just not gonna matter. You know, I know your ego hurt right now, but it's not gonna matter. I don't know what happened, but like I've been out there, man. I've been in college. I've been in the streets. I've done every dumb and intelligent thing you can do. And the older I got, just the more I realized what really matters, man, is the woman, if you have one, or man, if that's what you like, your children, your family, you know, whatever your passion is in life. And I just wish these young men could get that. Like, that's what hurts me. You know, it hurts me that this kid is gone because I was so impressed by him. He was so talented. His swag was through the roof. What scares me is that more violence will come because I know people loved him. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to see more violence come in a city like Atlanta, because Atlanta is one of the last of the chocolate cities. You know, we lose Atlanta, that's it. You know, it's not very good. And I would hope that we would better hold our legacy like that. So, you know, for people involved, man, I'm gonna just keep praying. I hope y'all do too, because I honestly just, I'm hurt. I'm hurt by so many young men throwing their life away with violence when they don't have to.
Like, how heavily were you into the street life at certain points of your life?
You get in the street life early. You get in the street life time you're 12 years old and you can look out for somebody, and they give you $50 for looking out. You know, you're in the street life when you're 14 and somebody front you a bomb. And you know, you do it a couple times, they won't give you a raise, you run off from it. You're street life when you get in freshman year in college and realize nobody in college does crack cocaine. I can't sell that shit no more, so you start selling weed. You know, you're in the street life when you step away from what's legitimate, you know, when you're working at the AutoZone selling coke, you know what I'm saying? You're in the street life. The thing for me, though, is I always understood that there is no end. No, there is. Scarface died. You know, that's what I picked up from that movie as a kid. The people that I saw successful in the streets were the old men who owned something. They own barbershops, they own garages, they own liquor stores, they own convenience stores. So for me, even in the middle of the street life, I was always focused on doing something else. I was always focused on the thing. For me, it was music. I went into music, and I immediately went into music, and I started flourishing, and I didn't have no reason to do that other stuff anymore. You know, I think that oftentimes people get so caught up in the glamour of it. Well, man, Mike, tell me when you was about, if you know about anybody from Rainbow Drive in Decatur, they know me for real. If you know anybody from Adamsville to Collier Heights, Bankhead, they know me for real. If you go ask some homies that might know your uncle, they'll tell you for real. But in terms of me, man, I'm more interested in sharing the story of I transitioned out of that bullshit. And if you got $5, $10, $15, $20, $25,000, you can transition out of the street life. For $5,000, you can set up a goddamn snow cone stand. You know, for $10,000, you can set up a nice storefront. For 15 or 20, you can get you a small walk-in, walk-out Subway. But what you don't have to do is stay trapped in the cycle of making money, going to the club, buying cloudy jewelry, buying used premium cars, trying to impress other men by having candles on your bottles. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You know what I mean? There is an alternative. You can hire an accountant to teach you what to do with your money. You can hire a lawyer to teach you how to shift your money. You can make sure your girl has good credit so she can actually get a building in her name. But you do not have to continue the current bullshit that you're doing. You just don't.
Well, how was it for you doing crimes while your father?
My father wasn't a cop anymore by then, but some of his old comrades were, and my cousin was. So for me, bankers have no remorse in stealing your money. They don't give a damn that they took $30 billion in overdraft fees. Drug dealers do have a sense of remorse for what they do. That's why they support little league teams. That's why they help old people with turkeys at Thanksgiving. That's why they buy winter coats and school supplies. Because when an emperor and a pirate are talking, an emperor often takes the pious judgment that somehow the pirate is wrong for robbing ships. But the pirate is always duty bound to me to remind the emperor that what I do for ships, you do to countries and people and humanity, you know? That's a very famous conversation too, if you guys Google that one, the emperor and the pirate. For me, I held a remorse for what I did, but I was very much a capitalist on the streets. I was very much like, I had a set of moral codes. I'm not gonna sell to a pregnant woman. I rapped about it on Crown when I did, so you want to hear that. I knew I was going to keep a job even with, so I still worked 4 hours a day no matter how successful I was, because if I ever went for a judge, I was going to be able to tell a judge, hey man, it was just something I was doing. I did everything I could do to insulate myself against arrest, and luckily I was never arrested, and I was pretty successful as a mid-level drug dealer. But what I never, ever, ever did was allow myself to think my full-time job was selling drugs. What I never, ever allowed myself to think was that if I had $15,000 in the closet, that I was supposed to go to the club and shine on niggas. Like the first $20,000 I counted out of cash, we went out and bought studio equipment. You know, and so my dream was constantly focused on escaping that bullshit. It was never, ever in relishing in it. And I believe that there's so many more brothers that could be more valuable to our community as entrepreneurs if they were taking their seed money. Everybody started with crime. Joseph Kennedy was a bootlegger. Prescott Bush did his scams. Donald Trump's granddad owned fucking bordellos or fucking whorehouses. And you know, crime as a first step, I'm not judging you. I only judge you when you repeat stupid cycle twice. We don't have to do that. We can use the crime or the criminal class to come up off of. And that's all I want criminals to know. You know, saying it in the music and shit is entertaining. Trapping out the bando is one of the greatest phrases I've ever heard in my life. But I really trapped out of the bando. That shit stank. The water didn't work. You were shitting in a goddamn blue shit in the commode. You were pissing if you could. You know, it's like, the bando is terrible in real life, but it sounds good. So, you know, just know that, enjoy the music, but please, kids out there, understand that the lifestyle is not going to lead you the way you want to go. You know, so if you are lucky enough to make some money from drugs, you know, start a snow cone stand.
I'm a fan of Drake. I'm a fan of the idea of Drake. So, no disrespect against Drake.
What do you mean by the idea of Drake? What does that mean?
Meaning that if he has a ghostwriter, he's an idea. He's not meaning that it's a perception created that he's not really writing the lyrics, and it's just like here, let's make this in the factory and put it out.
I'm just on top of my game right now, Vlad, and I'm just getting blessed. I'm booked 4 or 5 times a week, 60, 75K a show, man. I'm winning right now, man, and I'm just steady trying to increase my hustle.